Hello everyone, welcome to CBSE Live. Today I shall be discussing one of the important chapters of Class 12 CBSE Board, that is On the Face of It by Susan Hill. So this is an act, that means one act play by Susan Hill. So it is going to be very important video, especially for the students in understanding the detailed summary of this chapter. So please do not skip and watch it till the end, so that you'll be having no problem in understanding this chapter in detail. So let us quickly move on to the different slides here. Who is Susan Hill? Let us quickly understand about her. Okay, let us quickly know more about her. Who is she? Dame Susan Elizabeth Hill is an English author of fiction and non-fiction works. Her novels include The Woman in Black, which has been adapted in multiple ways, The Mist in the Mirror, and I'm the King of the Castle, for which she received the Somerset Maugham Award in 1971 as well. So you can see in the pictures it looks something like this. So she was born on 5th February 1942. She is an old woman now, 81 years, born in United Kingdom, that is UK, in England. And genres she used to write in is fiction as well as non-fiction. So in this play is an act play. I mean one act play, wherein we can see only three characters there. So let us understand what the characters here. First character is Mr. Lamb. Mr. Lamb is an old man who lives alone in a big house with a big lawn. Lawn means open space in front of the house. He is physically handicapped, physically impaired person, having lost his leg in a bomb explosion during the war. He is very optimistic, though. He's very positive and optimistic also. His openness is reflected through the open doors and windows of his house also. Let me add few or more values to his character here, because he's very open, he's very optimistic as well as positive, and very much expressive because he's an old man. Also he is very positive towards his future, because he's an experienced man as well. So that is all reflected through his dialogue uh, in the chapter also. And the next one is the Derry. Derry is a 40-year-old young lad whose face is half burnt because of acid spill on it. Derry was always introverted, frustrated, angry, and withdrawn. Uh, if you look at Mr. Lamb, he is very positive, optimistic, and very much open and expressive. On here is the Derry's mother, who is very much overprotective and does not understand her son's longing. Longing here is desire for the companionship. Companionship is a friendship. Okay, so she's very much overprotective, and she's not caring about the desire for the friendship of her son here. She does not allow him to meet Mr. Lamb. She treats Derry with a sense of pity and robs him of his dignity by perpetually treating him. Perpetual means constantly treating him like a victim, like a helpless victim, in fact. So these are the characters. Let us quickly understand the detailed summary of this chapter, what it is. Okay, I hope you can see all in the screen here. This is a play. As I said, this is a play, means only one act play, wherein we can see three different scenes in the play. Moreover, it is about the friendship between a young boy, Derry, who is 14-year-old, as we already saw in the slides, and an old man, Mr. Lamb. Because of his facial scar, just because of the acid, he is very upset and feels that people do not want to associate with him. He feels like that. He is very upset. He feels that people do not want to make friend with him, make kind of friendship with him. So he always try to hide from the people, from the crowd. So in order to hide from the people, he gets into the old man's garden. Old man's over here is the Mr. Lamb's garden, but panics when he meets him. But he gets scared, afraid, at the same time nervous when he actually meets Mr. Lamb on the garden. The play also depicts the disappointment and loneliness of physically impaired person. Like in this play, we can see uh, that the two characters, especially Mr. Lamb and Mr. Derry, these two are the characters having a physical impairment. So this is also something we can understand that the play is depicting, especially the disappointment and loneliness of physically impaired person. But this is directly related to this Mr. Derry only, because the other person, Mr. Lamb, the old man, is very much positive, optimistic about his life and about what has happened and what is going to happen tomorrow as well. And this line is very, very important. I think the sense of alienation, I mean the separation, the sense of separation is very important than the physical disability. That is what this play is trying to depict us. Uh, because sense of alienation, sense of separation from your loved ones, from your friendship, is very, very uh, important or painful than the physical disability. Mr. Lamb actually, all right, Mr. Lamb puts him at ease and advises him to accept life as it comes, because he's an experienced person, old man, and he has a lot of experience and he knows what life is all about. Therefore, he always tries to put Mr. Derry, the 14-year-old boy, at ease, and he also advises him to accept life as it comes, because Mr. Lamb is cheerful and optimistic approach he has uh, towards life. Also, Mr. Lamb conveys Derry to live life to the fullest and avoid bitterness. He further advises him to accept life as it is. However, Mr. Derry finally was moved by Mr. Lamb's attitude and spirit. He was really moved. He really, through the dialogue also, we can understand in detail that Mr. Derry was really moved by Mr. Lamb's attitude and his advices and his way of life. Besides, when Derry tries to come out of his cell, uh, he made a great loss of the only person who makes friends with him. So this line is something you'll be knowing later on once we complete this chapter, because he's going to lose the only friend that he has met in the garden, that is Mr. Lamb. Here you can see in the picture also, Mr. This is the picture of Mr. Derry. Simply we can relate to this. There before he was just like that, but now what happened is one part of his face got uh, acid spilled on, and then his face is not looking as good as it was earlier. Therefore he is trying to hide himself uh, from everybody around. So the story basically starts with a teenage boy Derry who enters a garden, and that garden belongs to Mr. Lamb, the old man. Due to an accident, when acid befell on his face and got burned on one side, befell, you can see it down there in glossary part. Especially that happened to someone just because of something, and that is acid has caused some problems on his face. Therefore, he's having uh, this sort of face right now. So he was afraid of facing people. That's why he has gone there to hide. So basically, the intention of Mr. Derry going to the garden of Mr. Lamb was just to hide himself from the crowd, uh, because he is always uh, afraid, not only afraid, but also feeling a kind of sigh to uh, disclose uh, his face to the people, because he is diffident, he's not that confident about his face, because other people tease him for having such a face. Upon entering the garden, he finds someone already present there, and that someone is none other than Mr. Lamb. Hence, he tries to leave, but the old man, Mr. Lamb, the owner of the garden, stops him. So he must be thinking that, you know, Mr. Derry has come to the garden for some reason, maybe for stealing purposes, because we have got something very important fruits uh, there in the garden. So what happens next? Let's see. Not arriving without permission, Derry feels guilty, because Actually, Mr. Derry has come to the garden uh, not in intention of stealing something from the garden, uh, but at the same time he also uh, came out of his home without the permission of his mother. However, Mr. Lamb welcomes him in his garden and tells him not to leave just because of his presence. Somewhere, Mr. Lamb thought that Mr. Derry has come to the garden for some important purpose, and Derry is going to leave the garden just because Mr. Derry saw Mr. Lamb. But that was not the case. But let's see what happens next. People don't like his face. That's what Derry thinks, and that's why he wants to leave. Because suddenly, as I said, Mr. Derry's intention was to hide himself from the people, not to show his face, because he's not confident about his face. He's scared. He's afraid. He's diffident. He's not optimistic. In fact, pessimist. Therefore, when he entered the garden, he saw the man sitting there, and then he thought that uh, there is already one person who is sitting in the garden, and he's going to see his face. Therefore, he's going to tease him. That is what Derry thinks. Now, and then again, Mr. Lamb asks him to stay there. After that, they start having a conversation. Then how no one liked Derry and how he hates people behaving like this with him. Also, Mr. Lamb attempts to console him. Console means to comfort someone at a time of grief or disappointment. Now you can see in the garden how garden looked like. Somehow you can see somehow like this because in the play we got to know that there was a garden having crab apples. So Mr. Lamb's garden having crab apples. Now what is crab apple? Crab apple is a small kind of apple that is sour slightly in taste. So Mr. Lamb states to him that he has a thin leg and how kids makes fun of him, yet he enjoys his life to the fullest. So in the conversation, they started. Initially, the boy wanted to leave the garden and immediately go out of the garden, but Mr. Lamb tried and convinced Mr. Derry, the small boy, to stay back and enjoy and accept the life what it is. Therefore, he also states, Mr. Lamb also states to Mr. Derry that he also has a thin leg and how kids makes fun of him. The conversation went on and revealed various things about Derry's fear, hatred, and depression about being in such a condition. So Mr. Lamb also comes to know gradually about the fear, hatred, and depression of Mr. Derry, why he was scared of everything, what happened to him, and what is his take about his life. Also, Mr. Lamb keeps on telling him to think about the positive things. Before long, they became friends, and Mr. Lamb asked Derry to assist him in plucking the crab apples for his crab apples of his garden. As we know, there were crab apples in the garden of Mr. Lamb, and when they became finally friends, uh, Mr. Lamb asked Mr. Derry to help him in plucking the crab apples from his garden because he's having what? He's having only one leg. One is of thin leg, so that may not help Mr. Lamb to climb up the uh, apples tree and pluck them. And that was the reason he asked Mr. Derry to assist him in plucking the crab apples from his garden. So crab apples, as I said, the small kind of apple that is sour in taste. Mr. Derry states to him that he had come too far from his home and hadn't told anything about this to his mother. So, as in when Mr. Lamb asked the assistance of Mr. Derry to pluck the crab apples from the tree, Mr. Derry says that he had come from far off places, so he had not informed about his coming to his mother also. So Mr. Lamb asked him to take permission from his mother. The meantime, Mr. Lamb is an old man, experienced man, good man. Therefore, he suggests him to take permission from his mother whenever coming out of this home. But Mr. Derry finds it difficult, and this leads to a small argument between both of them also. So Mr. Derry finds it quite difficult. Quite difficult means not easy. Informing somebody to come out of this home, somehow he is not comfortable in all of these things, and this actually led to a small argument between uh, two, these two, Derry and Mr. Lamb. Eventually, Derry agrees. Finally, Derry agrees and tells Mr. Lamb that he would come back after asking permission from his mother. So gradually what happens in the play is that Mr. Derry gets convinced uh, by the positive approach, positive attitudes of life of Mr. Lamb also. And finally what happens here, Derry agrees, and then he tells him, okay, let me go and inform my mother. I'll take permission from my mother, and then I'll come back very soon. However, his mother does not want him to go, but he came back to fulfill his promise. In the meantime, Mr. Lamb climbs a ladder. So right now what is happening is Mr. Derry has gone to his home to just ask the permission from the mother. In the meantime, Mr. Lamb climbs because Mr. Derry is not there right now because he is going to ask the permission from the mother. So that's why in the meantime, Mr. Lamb climbs a ladder on his own, actually to pluck the crab apples, as he was sure that Derry would not return. Moreover, because of his disability, it was difficult for him to climb. Okay, because we all know that he has got only one leg, the other one was of tin. So it was very difficult for him, for Mr. Lamb, to climb. So uh, what happens? So he slips from the ladder and dies. On the other hand, Mr. Derry returns to the garden to help him, but on entering the garden, he sees him lying on the floor. The floor means on the ground of that particular garden. Further, he attempts to move him, but did not get any response from him. That means Mr. Derry tries to attempt to move him, check him whether he is good, but did not get any response from him. In the end, what happens? He came to know that he's dead and starts crying. Finally, Mr. Derry comes to know that the old man, Mr. Lamb, has been dead, and he starts weeping. The disability means the handicap, especially that limits one's movement. Um, and we all know in this chapter, Mr. Lamb has got only one leg, the other one is of tin, so he is somehow, we can say, handicapped or impaired version somehow. So in the conclusion, we can understand the writer wants to say that we should never feel shame on our appearance. Also, we should be positive and optimistic about ourselves. Just like the character, Mr. Lamb was very much positive uh, and optimistic and very much expressive about uh, the lives. So in this video, I have discussed in detail a summary of this chapter on the face of it by Susan Hill, and I'm sure this is going to be very helpful, especially for you all for the upcoming exams. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put down in the comment section so that we can work out in detail. So in the next video, I shall be trying to come up with all the solving question and answers that are very much important and related to this chapter. So I'll be discussing all those details in the next video as well. So please do not forget to like, share and subscribe this channel